Hello again. So here I am again with my friend Vanessa. And this time we are going to be weaving and talking and conversing with death. Deaths. It's one of three conversations. One we've already done was on the 40 nights, 40 nights to accompany our dead to the shore of their ancestors. And this one is about the diversity of death in a lifetime. And the next one will be on suicide. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking to you, both of us, from France. And I would like to start really naming that death so far and in my youth and in my childhood has been presented to me as something very scary, very dangerous, like a failure somehow, and also as a monocultured. Somehow there's one death, there's only one death, the big one. And gradually, as I have walked the path of soul and the language of soul, I realize there's at least 20 kinds of death. So I want to really bring to this space the diversity of death and to welcome them all, to welcome the small death of every night, to initiatory death, to the rites of passage death, to big death, the chaos death. And Vanessa, I would like to invite you. We've been in conversation over the years, you and I, about grief and love and death and rebirth, who are also the four sisters of the last forest on earth, a beautiful tale that I wrote. And please, Vanessa, what would you like to share about your encounter with death and how did it move you?
Well, I last year, as we mentioned in the previous conversation, but just for those who maybe didn't watch it, I lost my husband to suicide. And he was the father of our two boys, who were 6 and 3 at the time. And that was not the first person I know who died. It was not my first encounter with death of all the types that you speak of. But that has been the most significant in my life to date. And also navigating that for my children. So it was very interesting when you talk about the monoculture and the fear. So this was all things that came up for me when I was figuring out, so how do I present this for my children so that they can process their grief for losing their papa in a healthy way. And when I reached out to you a few days after Vincent died, it was one of the questions that I asked you at the end of our conversation was for your guidance around whether I should take my boys to see their father's body. They had asked to go, and part of me felt that they should, but then there was also this cultural conditioning that is, I think everybody will know, that the children should not go to funerals, they should not see dead bodies, they should be protected. That this is something to be feared and hidden. And you, of course, told me that I should take them to see their papa's body, to show them that death is not the enemy. And that really resonated with me, being so in tune as we are with working with the cycles of nature and, as you say, life, death, rebirth. So I wanted to yeah, that felt right to me. As soon as you said that, I was like, yes, of course. And taking them there, preparing them with the story that we shared in the last video about the being on the boat to meet the ancestors, and the boys preparing gifts to take to their papa, also, as you suggested, was such a beautiful way of preparing them. And when they saw him, it was extraordinary. Their reaction as children was primarily just curiosity, and that really just assuaged all of my fear about that. They were not scared. They were not, it was their papa. And they had so many questions, about his body, and lying on this refrigerated table, and they were sort of following the cord, and, oh, here's where it plugs in, mama, and this is why it's, this is keeping him cold. And it's just, just that the curiosity, the childlike curiosity of it all was really beautiful to see, and how they interacted with him. And yeah, it was just so affirming, that we really need to engage with death and not fear what is offered. There's so much learning there. There's so much initiation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I can feel their curiosity, and it reminds me of a practice I offer sometimes in trainings. I offer is to meet our own death. So it's in pair works, and one put a black cloth and becomes your death, and it could last half a day, and it resonates with what your children did and said, and the way they met is every time we meet our death, there is no violence from that meeting. Never, never. We can negotiate and seduce and, going, well, I'm not ready, whatever. But actually, there is such a calm interest from death also to us in this practice that we do sometimes with students. And I just wanted to pick the word enemy, because that really struck me also about the way we talked about COVID, or the way we talk about cancer, or the way we talk about illness that could lead us to death. It's a language of war. We will conquer, we will fight, we will win, we will. So, and that sense of failure, if we're ill or if we're going to die. And it takes away what I sense in you and this whole year and your family. And I said before we recorded how bright you look, how beautiful you look, and how almost like, well, spring. I know we're in spring, and it's the rebirth and regeneration of soul. Because you somehow, your soul, because you didn't have a book telling you exactly how to meet such a initiation. And I see grace, I see grace in you. I feel grace, I hear grace. And perhaps if you'd like to share with us a little bit about how was your encounter with Vincent's death, your husband, who committed suicide and left you with 2 boys, children, and much more. But yeah, because you named something before we recorded, so maybe you'd like to go there about that rebirth, that feeling of having gone with it, that not resisting, not negotiating, actually, just. And I've witnessed that in you. You have gathered the support you needed. You're very talented, I think, for that. You gather all the people you need and the beings you need. And And yeah, if you'd like to speak to that.
Well, there's a lot of things that come up around that, but
Yeah.
Obviously the initial meeting with death, with his death, was extremely painful and shocking, and yeah, and we'll go deeper into this conversation tomorrow, with around suicide and everything that comes up around that, that type of death. But what I have come to is a peacefulness, feeling that he is peaceful now through his choice, and now I've made my peace with his choice. But I think, you know, the initiation is a huge one, which you can choose to fight, as you said, to battle against what's happening and to be in denial, or you can meet it and work through the grief. And I think my approach has been openness, just receiving the support that I needed, but also just the growth, the change that was being offered to me, after finishing the 40 days. That was the focused time on Vincent. But afterwards, it was like, okay, what is this going to birth in me now, as an adult woman on my own, single for the first time, in my adult life, and who am I actually now? So there was this process of my, what my life, I had planned that my life was going to be, the ideas that I had about who I was and what my life was going to be, all of that died as well. So I had to die. That version of me died with him. And I have been in a process of feeling like I'm the caterpillar mush in the cocoon, the chrysalis. I'm not really 100% sure yet who is going to emerge from the cocoon. I'm still very much in that process, but being aware that, yeah, there is a rebirth as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I want to offer us a little pause, because we are talking about everything. I was just struck how we dove into the most fundamental subjects. And you really described the diversity of death. So many deaths happened, not just Vincent. Your identity, your orientation, your position, your constellation, your, like, everything. And I wanted to speak maybe briefly about the difference between death and extinction. Because when death happens, we know, because it's winter, right? Winter time, that there will be spring.
So
I
it's
mean,
not.
so far it's happening. And they are exploding of life right now, right? And birdsong and blossoms. Extinction, it's finished. It's done. So I'm not going to go deep into this. It's been my work. But it's the difference with death is, it's, like I said early on, it's one of the four sisters. It keeps going. Grief, love, death, rebirth, grief. And it goes fractal, and it goes big, and it goes small, and it goes chaotic, and it goes smoothly. It's so diverse. I think that word keeps coming. Almost like I want to give breath again to this, with certain loyalty to death, actually, certain duty of care towards death. I don't know if that makes much sense, but I
Mhm.
feel that in my heart
Mm.
because she's totally part of your initiation. And it's like you are birthing a new woman. Without this, that woman wouldn't be born. So I had to welcome on the other side. That's what I feel. An initiation, the last part of the 4 parts of initiation, is the welcoming back. And as you said, you are still in the soup, in the mush. So, but there will be a time perhaps where we can gather around you and welcome you back,
Mm.
or welcome you as this renewed woman, different woman, same and different. I wonder if you'd like to speak to that threshold or that crack or that unnameable or that unformed yet or that, I don't know, if you wanted to, because, well, you started. So I just wanted to give you the thread to carry on weaving this.
I have been on in the winter. I invited and allowed what I knew was present in me, which was that I needed to stop and go deep, and rest and allow everything that was beneath the surface that I've been, I mean, everything's been, it's always busy, but I needed to make space for the grief, the sadness to come out fully. Of course, it had already been expressed a lot. And so I went on to a really deep dive with that in winter, January and February. And there was a time when I felt that a lot of the things that I used to do, that I thought were a part of me, were no longer bringing me joy.
Mm,
And I was like, oh my goodness, I thought that that was a big part of me and who I was, and now I have to rethink everything. So, um, but instead of being afraid of that again, I was just curious. It's okay. All right, this is shedding, and I don't know who is going to emerge, but I'm really curious to meet her.
mm,
Uh, and I'm not in a hurry either. It's not like, we have such a fast paced, we have to know now. And it can be really uncomfortable to sit in limbo and to not know. But guess through my practice, I'm much better now than I used to be about trusting
mm,
and sitting in the discomfort and listening and waiting. um, So yeah, it's not something to be rushed.
mm, mm. You remind me of this line of a poem, and I can't remember his name who wrote it, and I'm probably going to paraphrase, but the essence is there, is, you might know it, is all my life I thought I wanted to be a poet, when all my life what I truly wanted to be is a poem.
Mm.
And when I listen to you, you're like a poem. It's like you don't need to try to define who you are and what you're going to do next and da, 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 da. Say, oh, you are being. You are now, right now, being this poem to me, and not to have to define yourself in your actions, but just in your being. Um, so it touches me to that you naming the slow pace, that place in between shapes. And also, you're talking to me about composting, the alchemy of composting. Really, the sacred work of grief, also to acknowledge the seasons and the decompositions and the decay and the unclear what it's going to become, and this fertile soil, if it's um, if it's touched by grace, it will be fertile soil, and then the seeds might grow. But some seeds grow in 2 days, and some take 2 years. Like the yew tree takes 2 years, but a rocket seed will grow in 2 days. So it's interesting. You're really talking like a compost heap. You know, with the greatest respect, as you know how much I love compost. You know? But that decomposing forest ground floor. Isn't it interesting how much we can laugh talking about death?
Mm.
I wonder if you'd like to say anything else about your experience with death recently, well, this year.
Yeah, just that, after losing someone, there's, as I experienced today, there's a story from today. There's steps of loss. There's lots of little losses afterwards. There's a gradual letting go. So, for example, with my eldest son, we went through my husband's clothes on the weekend, and today I handed over some of his clothes to a friend who was in need, and that was another letting go. Every time we open up a jar of jam that he made, which I'm still on my boy's breakfast, he's still feeding us, he's still nourishing us with all the preserves that he made, but it's one day will be the last jar. That will be another letting go. And today I was working with some friends on their garden on a very special piece of land, and I discovered at the end that his wedding ring had fallen off my finger. And so that was something to absorb, but also I didn't cry, I didn't get upset. It was just, oh, okay, that was the time. He came to me, I mentioned to you before, he came to me last night in a dream. And that was the first time he's visited me in my dream since he died. And he hugged me, and he was holding this hand, the hand which I've chosen to wear his ring since he died. And then today the ring was gone and impossible to find in a field of long grasses. It was, that was a definitive. So he chose, I feel, again, and I have to respect his choice. It's like he chose for me to lose that ring today, and that was another letting go, felt a significant one. It was a message from him to say that we are no longer married. He's gone. So
Mm.
I still wear my wedding ring and engagement ring here, and of course that I probably always will. But it's just these little deaths, incremental losses that come in our daily lives. I think even without the big loss of someone, there's always these small steps, these small changes, letting go of things. But yeah, I had to accept it and meet it and be okay. Okay, well, this is the way things go, and this is another step, another step on the path. And you never know where they're going to come. That you just have to welcome them, these steps. Yeah.
I really feel the love in your stories. I feel your love. And that is it, isn't it? That strong partnership between love and grief and death, rebirth. I'm gonna wrap up because it's time. I just wondered if before we close, just wonder if you have something to say to death directly. You do? No, because I could as well participate in that response. Just because we talk about her, and I'm always very keen with everything that we talk directly. It's like praising life. We don't say, "Oh, look, it's so beautiful." We say, "You are so beautiful." directly to her.
Mm.
And there's something about, we've invited death in this conversation, many deaths, different kind of death, fractal death. And I just wondered if we could finish by saying a few words to her, just like intuitively. You know, I can start if you want. But, but there's something about a profound gratitude of her revealing some of her mystery through what you've been through what I've been through. I've seen many deaths. There's something in my heart that really want to work towards making her less of an outcast, and like to make you, death, less of an outcast and something to avoid at all costs. That the more I talk about you, death, with others like you, Vanessa, I feel a great gentleness and love from her, from you, death. So this kind of thing. But if you don't have anything to say, maybe I've said enough.
Oh, I do.
Please.
There was just what came to me immediately, very similar to what you've been saying. But yes, what I would like to say to you, Death, is welcome and thank you. And I'm no longer afraid. And I see you as a bringer of peace. There is a peacefulness to you that I didn't know. And it's nice to know you that way. Yeah.
This is a beautiful place to end, would you say? Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much again, Vanessa. We've been loving these conversations, and we'll have our third one on suicide very soon. And the time is ripe. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.